Hi there, welcome back to the archives, or welcome to the archives if you've never been here. Um, I just returned James Baldwin's Giovanni's Room to the library. I should have done this before I went, but I just finished reading it last night, and I wanted to share some thoughts on what I thought about it. Also, I wanted to share a piece I wrote. I think I definitely did not write it. Um, I did earlier on a couple weeks ago. I was doing some writing to process the themes of down women, and or folks who either MSM, like men who have sex with men, because again, not all men who have sex with men identify as gay, bi, or queer, or right. And so I learned that when I used to do sexual health education. It's just a distinction between MSM, men who have sex with men, and men who identify as gay. Um, Giovanni's Room, basically, I wish I had kept the book itself. James Baldwin, it's about a man who goes to sorry, one second. I'm trying to find the publication date. It's about I think she was a white man. It's about a man, an American man who is living in Paris, and is married to a no. Sorry, one second. I'm getting distracted and just talking foolishness. I'm gonna try to find the book on the library. One second. All right, I found the information. So, Giovanni's Room was published in this edition was republished in 2016, but the original was published in 1956. So let me get out my handy dandy calculator because next year will be the what anniversary? 70th anniversary next year. So it's been 69 years since it was published, right? That's a whole boomer if you think about it. So he published this in 1956. I think it was one of his earlier books that he published. Baldwin's father was a pastor who subjected his. Okay, about the author. So James Baldwin was born on August 2nd, 1924, in New York. Baldwin's father was a pastor who subjected his children to poverty, abuse, and religious fanaticism. As a result, many of Baldwin's recurring themes, such as alienation and rejection, are attributable to his upbringing. Living the life of a starving artist, Baldwin went through numerous jobs, including dishwasher, office boy, factory worker, and waiter. In 1948, he moved to France, where much work originated. Baldwin published Go Tell It on the Mountain in 1953, a largely autobiographical work. It tells the religious awakening of a 14-year-old in addition to his childhood experiences. As a black man and a homosexual provided inspiration for such works as Giovanni's Room, Nobody Knows My Name, and Another Country. Baldwin holds a distinguished place in American history as one of the foremost writers of both black and gay literature. He was an active participant in the civil rights movement. So Giovanni's Broom, David is a DL final boss. Sorry, I was just reading some of these comments. Although I prefer his nonfiction, James Baldwin really can do no wrong with words. Yeah, it's just like it's poetic. The writing, it took me a while to get into because the beginning, it was just like it bounced back to. I was like, did this already happen? Did this already? So it took me a while to get into it, but his writing is super poetic, super beautiful. It's about a man. Did I tell you what it was about? It's about a American man who's living in Paris, engaged to Hella. Hella is another American woman. she's off frolicking Europe. She's like in Spain and living her best life, traveling around. And while David is in Paris, he is a struggling something. It never really says what he was, or maybe I missed it. But basically, he is meets Giovanni. They hit it off. And he pretty much immediately moves in with Giovanni because he got kicked out of his own place. So you see some like economic dependence stuff there, which is interesting to see when it's two men. Because right now, especially with like SNAP benefits being taken away, I've been seeing this trend, and again, of some folks getting online being like, "Oh, pussy rent is going down," and this assumption that like women are all of a sudden just gonna move in with men or just be using men, and that's not what you get from Giovanni's room, right? You don't get that like David was using Giovanni for his room or any of that. Like you do get that they did generally have feelings for each other. There was love there, and they move in together. They live together for a couple months, and then Hella decides she's coming back, and then that basically just unravels their love story, right? And so David essentially is a DL man, right? DL being a down low man. I've seen discourse. Just today, I saw a post. I was like, just because a man hurts you doesn't mean he's gay. That's super homophobic. Absolutely. Thank you, Captain Obvious, right? But for some people, it's not obvious, and we do need to be called in, which is why I was really grateful for. Uh, I was really grateful for this piece I read today by um, Robert Robert Jones Jr. called "Love and Hip Hop." It says, thinking about my favorite artists in hip hop culture forced me to confront that what hip hop culture might think about me. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant piece. It was originally for paid Substack users, and then today Robert republished it for free for those of us who aren't paid subscribers, and it's just so thorough. So it goes into basically talks about the birth of hip hop, how Robert was there in New York. He's from Brooklyn, in Brooklyn during the emergence of hip hop. How he heard he lived with his auntie and his cousins lived with him and his mom at that time, and his older cousins were just talking about like, oh, they just heard this. Let me read it here. Uh, My aunt Darlene and cousins Don, Jimmy, and Lamont were all living with my mother and me temporarily in the South Brooklyn housing projects I grew up in. My cousin had heard the song before I did because they were outside when someone was blasting it from their boombox. Music was always communal in those days before the Walkman, portable CD players, iPods, and smartphones. My cousins excitedly relayed to me how the song sounded, that it was talking, not singing, and they recited some of the lyrics they remembered. And so he talks about how then that also leads to culture, diasporic wars. I love that. I'm so grateful. Um, Robert mentioned diasporic wars, so he also talks about um, before it was called rap or hip hop, it was really just house party music specially made by and for young people of the African diaspora. I make note of that last bit because there's a popular but false notion that hip hop is not a diasporically created art form. But I was actually there when it was created, so I know that's a lie. I witnessed with my own two eyes how it sprung out of the minds and mouths of black people from New York and New Jersey whose roots were in Barbados, Jamaica, Mississippi, Puerto Rico, and more, all influenced by West African musical sensibilities and traditions. They were all in it together. So the modern day territorial battle over which black people own rap music strike me not only unnecessarily divisive, but absolutely ridiculous. So the article talks about the diaspora wars, and then it goes into and he talks about how racism, brilliant Toni Morrison's quote on how racism is basically a distraction, right? Where Toni Morrison says it's important, therefore, to know who the real enemy is and to know the function, the very serious function of racism, which is distraction. It keeps you from doing your work. It keeps you explaining over and over again your reason for being. Somebody says you have no language, and so you spend 20 years proving that you do. Somebody says your head isn't shaped properly, so you have scientists working on the fact that it is. Somebody says that you have no art, so you dredge that up. Somebody says that you have no kingdom, so you dredge that up. None of that is necessary. None of this is necessary. There will always be one more thing. The strategy is no different than bombing Cambodia to keep northern Vietnamese from making their big push. And since not history, not anthropology, not social sciences seem capable in a strong and consistent way to grapple with that problem, it may very well be left to the artist to do it. And so that was a Toni Morrison quote from A Humanist View, which is a public um, speech done at Portland State University's. Anyway, so then Robert goes into the division, especially how it affected Haitian folks, and all that, and then he goes into lyrics that are homophobic. So from Rapper's Delight by Sugar Hill Gang, The Message by Grandmaster Flash and Furious Five, Roxanne Roxanne by UTFO, Shake Your Thing, It's Your Thing by Salt and Pepper, Nobody Move by NWA, Big Mama by Roxanne Shante, Punks Jump Up to Get Beat Down by Brand Nubian, Get Money by Little Kim with Junior Mafia, Lucky Me by Jay-Z, Talk to Me by Foxy Brown, Criminal by Eminem, Go DJ by Lil Wayne, Lauryn Hill, Neurotic Society, Young Miami, from the City Girls in a Twitter post in 2018, Pimpin' Ain't Easy by Kodak Black, The Baby Rolling Loud at Hard Rock Stadium, July of 2021. So he has a whole, like Robert comes with the receipts. Okay? Here are all the different hip hop heads and the homophobic lyrics and or comments that they've made, right? So then he gets into how growing up as a queer, gay, black kid and man in New York, what it was like to face and deal with racism, right? Growing up, it was frightening how accustomed I became to disses and abuses just for being perceived as gay. How conditioned I was to accept the assessment of myself as degenerate as fact. From at least 4 years old, I could testify to the fact that anti-queerness was an equal opportunity employer, that fuck what you heard, nothing, not race, sex, sexuality, age, ethnicity, class, political affiliation, religion, gender identity, or disability, none of that exempted anybody from perpetuating or participating in it, right? Unfortunately, that is true. And he goes on, like myself included, right? And he goes on to say, like, even gay people hate gay people. He says that in reference to, I think, Wendy Williams. Talks about Wendy Williams as well, too, later on. But basically, how, yeah, so Wendy Williams, I remember when Wendy Williams led Black communities into a full on frenzy and jump started a modern day mainstream revival of a particular brand of anti queerness when she began gossiping about the existence of some nameless gay rapper, and she allegedly had tea on. Listeners were calling in to the show daily trying to guess who it was, mainly so that they'd known who to target and stop supporting. Was it LL? I'm reading it, right? Was it LL Cool J, Busta Rhymes, Tupac, Guru, Will Smith, Method Man and Redman, Lil Wayne and Baby? Anti-queerness was weaponized to force cisgender heterosexual black men to prove, usually through acts of performative aggression, violence, and sexual verification, that they were not queer. Any and everybody who was accused of being on the so-called down low, and there was little to no analysis on how the nation's rampant homophobia, not to mention its commitment to compulsory heterosexuality, necessitated and laid the groundwork for down low activity and the so called toxic masculinity so many contemporary analysts blame black men for. So, and basically, under Robert says it's not just hip hop, right? Barbara Mason's Another Man goes into it. He also brings Oprah into it. It's like, don't forget that Oprah had those episodes as well too. Um, I think recently it would be more, who was it? Laverne Cox and oh, I'm forgetting who it was. Basically, a few of the dolls were, remember the interview they did in LA or somewhere, and basically they're talking about they wish that, oh, when Lil Nas X came out, and they were saying basically they wish that more hip hop artists, download artists would come out because they're there, right? And then like people were speculating on who they were talking about and such. 1 second. I love that the article basically goes on to talk about how Wendy Williams like suggested at that time that Sean Puff, Puff Daddy, Diddy, Love. So another thing. See, I'm just gonna pause to bring the gay guys into it because when like someone like me says like, oh, this guy, this narcissistic, abusive guy is down low, it's homophobic, rightfully so. But what happens when the gay guys are doing it? Because I was trying to find the post from Coach Anwar. I don't know if you guys know Coach Anwar, but I'm gonna bring them into it because Anwar White, for instance, I'm bringing up Diddy because Anwar did a thing to be like, here are some signs just to know in case a man is down low, right? So the gay boys are not helping either. I need to put that out there, like because when we pair it with the gay men are telling us, now we're homophobic, but we're getting it from the gay guys. Same thing, like one of my gay friends back in the days told me that when he was down low, he and a lot of gay men dated fat women because we were desperate and insecure, and we would overlook the fact that maybe they might be gay and still date them anyways. And I don't know if that was a sideways attack on me because like I was even bigger then. I don't know if he was trying to warn me. I don't know what that was. But now when I come and be like, yo, girl, the gay guys are saying that like the down low guys date fat girls. Now Dorothy's fat phobic. Now Dorothy's homophobic. The gay men are the ones that are telling me this. They are the ones giving me the tea. So Anwar went on and did a thing saying that pay attention to people who, especially the rappers who change their name, right? They tend to be down low. If he's lying, I'm lying. That's what Anwar said. And like I hate that Diddy proved him right. So as I was, that's what came up to me. So I'm gonna go back to the article. Actually, no, let me go back. Anwar. So I've been seeing a lot more gay men coming out warning black women against like what signs to look for in terms of down low men, and that's one of it. People who change their names. Obviously, these are stereotypes. So they also said the men that have multiple different baby mamas. Apparently, some of them are down low. He said some of the athletes, because like they feeling it, they're seeing other men's bodies. Who else was he saying? So this is a tea that the gay men are telling us, right? He says some of the worst narcissistic abusers tend to be down low because they're like punishing you for not being out. They said it, but I'm gonna go back to the article because Robert, which is why I really appreciate Robert, which is why I follow Robert, which is like I really, really respect Robert's writing because he goes down into the nuance to be like, okay, so maybe, so what if Diddy proved him right? And he talks about that, right? So what if Diddy proved Wendy Williams right? What about Mace? Because that's literally what he gets into. Later, Wendy Williams suggested that Sean Puff, Puffy, Puff Daddy, Diddy, Love, Combs, and Mason Mace brother were a gay couple. She claimed to have photographic proof. I can't pretend like I didn't wish that at least one of these gay rumors were true. It, it's frequently the case that many black queer men long to see ourselves represented openly in the culture. We believe that if black queer male celebrities come out, I'm reading, particularly ones who use masculine and sluggish who are masculine and thuggish. Their mere presence could perhaps convince the rest of the world that there's nothing wrong with us. And then maybe we can be accepted. Robert goes on to write, that's magical thinking though. In hip hop, engaging in homophobia is how rappers prove their mettle. Calling another rapper a faggot or a dyke is the easiest and most effective diss. Could you imagine if somebody like DMX, a Raekwon, or a Ghostface Killer said that they was gay? And I don't mean in an unserious ways Joe Budden and Tyler the Creator have approached the topic. Society would turn on them brothers so fast that it would give us all windburn. They would be in danger immediately. And pilloried is like the public, so bad that no pride could be mined from their courageous acts. Instead, their public executions would send a strong message to anyone else who was even thinking about coming out to reconsider if they knew what was best for them, right? So he talks about how Williams wasn't sharing this information about Combs and Betha to encourage the community to celebrate Black love. No, she was doing it to be mean and malicious. She was making it salacious as a way to gain cultural and economic capital because it was always been lucrative to disrespect and kill Black men publicly. She was saying it to start shit so that Combs and Betha could be collectively dogged, dragged, and shamed while she got her jollies and her coins watching it go down. Right? So Robert talked about how outings in life can be a severe, violent, and sometimes even lethal act, particularly basically because it's non-consensual. I tie it to rape culture. This is what Robert says, right? So while I could argue that Williams' assessment of Combs was prescient, and because of the alleged horrors being uncovered deserved about, but what about Betha, right? What about Mace? What did he do to deserve that? In retaliation, Diddy got Williams fired from the radio station and she moved to another market. But she kept up the same shtick, expanding beyond hip hop music to implicate people like Tyson Beckford and Derek Jeter in her queer antagonistic shenanigans. She did all this with glee and not an ounce of remorse. She threw the rocks and felt no need to hide her hand. And why should she? She has been shielded, protected, even from accountability by the rapidly complicit masses. The fact that she's considered a gay icon is to me proof that even gay people hate gay people. And so that was Robert Jones Jr. And so, yeah, it basically talks about how it is homophobic, outing people is terrible, um, and anti-queerness continues to emanate hip hop. Um, and so, yeah, I've been thinking about that in relation to Giovanni's room. And I think what I want to see both come together because I don't know Wendy Williams' experience, but for those who, and now I'm talking about Black women on the other end, for Black women or women who have dated people who they might have thought or suspected, or there were rumors about them being down low and or maybe even bi. Sometimes the lived experience has proved that they can be some of the worst abusers. That's not to say, again, that straight men are not, right? Which is why it's homophobic. Patriarchy has all of them effed up. Red pill, incel, all of it. It doesn't matter whether you're gay, straight, or not. But I do know from some folks I had talked to growing up, um, myself included, where for those who were queer and not sure how to come up, especially if you were raised in a Christian or a Muslim or I'm not so sure about Buddhism, but if you're raised in a like strict religious upbringing and you can't see yourself ever coming out, typically you fall down the pipeline of homophobia to protect yourself, right? I've had gay friends tell me that. I've had gay strangers tell me that. Before I came out, I was deeply, deeply homophobic. And I saw somebody recently do a black woman recently do a post about Tyler the Creator, and she was basically saying how the down low men it is can be considered a form of misogyny. I'm just gonna find. Oh, here's a history. Who was it again? I'm gonna see if I can find the person so that I can. But basically, she was talking about how, and she was using Tyler the Creator, for instance, as an example. How before Tyler the Creator came out, they were deeply, deeply, deeply problematic and homophobic, and they've never really atoned for that. I'm gonna try to find the the 1 second. It was Mayowa. Yeah, it was Mayowa's world. How Tyler the Creator punished black women for his self-hate. And so talking about how Tyler the Creator basically, like the title said, punished black women for his self-hate. And I do know that there are other um, black gay men who have come out and are, openly gay, but they've talked about, not even just black, I know Asian. There are just some queer folks gay men that I do know who talked about once having been deeply homophobic. And people still say that. Pay attention to the homophobic ones because they are usually they are usually trying to cover up their own. It's a form of deflection, right? It's a form of deflection. On CBC Gem, for those that are on CBC Gem, it's a streaming website here in Canada. There was a Settle Down. So Settle Down is a show. It's a series that I watch. It's a comedy series. Professional matchmaker and podcaster Mason is an expert in queer relationships. When it comes to love, he knows all except why his own relationship is on the rocks. So basically, Mason is a young gay man. He's married to another black gay man, and there's an episode they do with the gay rappers. Which one is it? Um, Basically, it's an episode where there's a gay rapper who is put on a date with a R&B R&B artist, and you see that whole clash, right? The down low rapper who is super homophobic in his lyrics, but low key is in love with loves men. And in one of the episodes, the rapper was like, "Who's out here putting up my business? Who's out here saying I'm gay?" And they were like, "Nobody. You outed yourself. Like you and all of your homophobic lyrics. Like you were the one that was exposing yourself because the straight guys aren't out here being that homophobic," which I don't agree with. But I do think there's some level of truth to it, right? A lot of straight guys don't really care to prove that they're not gay because they know that they're not gay. They don't care to do that, right? But sometimes, again, this is the word on the street. It has been said that those who are gay and or queer, bi, trans, right, but don't know how to come out because they're afraid to lose their fan base. It's just what the artist in this show was. He was afraid. He said, I don't want to lose my fan base. I built my whole career up. Like if people find out I'm gay, my career is over, done, right? All my money is gone. My people are gone. I lose my family. And I completely understand that and I have empathy for that, right? But then also, I find that sometimes these are the same people who will out other people and they don't care about what the repercussions are, right? They will put people's business out, they will surveillance other people. So when they're putting your business out on the street, it's fine. But how dare you do it to them, right? You shouldn't be doing it anyways, right? Always have consent. But this is half an hour, so I'm gonna go. But I just wanted to share. Um, if you haven't, please go read Robert Jones Jr.'s Junior's article, Love and Hip Hop. Today's November 4th, so he republished it this morning, which I'm so glad I was able to read it because I needed to be called in, right? I definitely need to be called in. But again, it's just, you can have that bitterness, that contempt, right? Um, and again, I don't think it's necessarily because of people are gay. I think it's just like, how dare you be so deceptive and use me, right? There's a feeling of being used. There's a feeling of being, it's just, and the violence in which some of them do treat women can be really awful, right? Again, that's all across the board with even straight men. But I think I want to see more of that nuance of like, where do black women go who have experienced that, right? Because don't gaslight us and be like, well, you're being homophobic. Yes, it's homophobic, but at the same time, I've had this experience with this individual who does love, does have homoerotic, same sex loving, but cannot come out and will lie about it, um, and then continue to date women and just dog women out, right? And so there is that nuance, but like, it can't be like, don't say anything because you're homophobic, right? 'Cause sometimes those people who are like, it's the ones reminding you are also like enabling their homies. Because you do feel bad, right? You don't want to out people out. Um, but at the same time, there are men out here that are also doing some really vile things to women, that it is a little bit also misogyny. Which again, if I'm always pointing the finger, what I've been doing is like, is there misandry in me? With the parts of me that hate men, why do I hate men? Am I punishing men for not being able to live my best gay life? Right? Um, I definitely would consider myself down low in the past. Again, I don't really date anybody right now, but what parts of me are punishing men for not being able to live authentically? That's what I have to ask myself, right? If I'm trying to ask the brothers out there to be like, you need to sit with the parts of you that hate women because you're punishing women for not being able to live who and how you want, I have to do the same. So I'm just gonna end it there. That's something I've been sitting with, is what are the parts of me that hate men, and do I hate men? Am I punishing them because of patriarchy that we're all up against, because of head says patriarchy that says that, it's an abomination, it's wrong, and we're all out here just fighting for our lives, lying about who we are because we know that's what we need to do to stay safe, right? I was gonna get into lavender marriages, which is what I had always seen myself in, because I never saw myself as an out lesbian, never, right? Not with the family that I have. So it was like my safest bet, just find somebody else who's also low-key queer, and then you guys could just both get married, and then both live undercover how you need to, right? Then that's a matter of safety and survival. And so I definitely understand why folks are down low. Um, but could we not hurt each other, right? Could we not punish each other for that? And that goes to myself included. So I'm going to end there. I'll share the articles and the links that I was talking about. So until next time, in solidarity. The Blue Jays lost, BTW.